Hello everybody, welcome back to another podcast. So last weekend we have the release of John Wick's Chapter 3 Parabellum, and then A Dog's Journey and The Sun is Also a Star. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, so let's jump right in. So coming in at number 1 is John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. I don't know what the Parabellum is referring to, I believe. What does Parabellum mean? Let's look it up. Alright, so I took a look so you don't have to. So Parabellum is a type of gun, I believe. So I guess John Wick and guns, have something to do with each other, right? So this movie pulled in or opened to 57 million in its opening weekend. I said the movie could probably open to 35 and 40 million in that range or so, because based on the performance of the previous movie, the Chapter 2 it opened to 30 million. It went on to make 90 gross. It went on to gross 92 million domestic and 171 million worldwide. And I said the movie left people wanting more because it is a very well made action movie, and there's this whole society of assassins that's living just right beneath everybody and that we don't know about. So this is a very interesting world that I guess people are willing to return to, and judging by the opening for Chapter 3, like I say, people wanted more, and the reviews wise it's not as good as the previous two movies. When I previewed the movie last Monday, I said it was at 98% on the tomato meter, and I said that I couldn't probably I couldn't see the movie dropping much, only maybe by a couple of percentage points, but it actually dropped about 10%. It's currently at 98% on the tomato meter, and A minus cinema score. So even though reviews are good, right, it dipped a little, but still the 57 million opening means people wanted to see John Wick, and that's what they got. And I said the 35 to 40 million was a conservative estimate because of the performance of the second movie. I could see it opening higher, and it did. So 57 million opening for John Wick Chapter 3 is a great start. Let's see if this movie has momentum. The movie will probably drop off in the high or low 50 in the second weekend, but we'll see, right? The Memorial Day weekend is coming. It probably won't drop that much because there's a 4-day extended weekend as well. So keep an eye on John Wick Chapter 3. Alright, moving along, number 2 is Avengers Endgame. It pulled in 29.4 million in its fourth weekend, a drop off about 54% from the previous week. Domestic gross is 770 million, and let's see, worldwide it is at 2.6 billion, with 1.8 billion of that from overseas. So this is like I said, this movie was a record-breaking movie. When it opened, this movie broke records left and right. And right now, it is, at least domestically, it is second just behind Star Wars: The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens has a domestic gross of 936 million. Avengers Endgame is 770 million. It just beat out Avatar's 760 million. So it doesn't look like it'll catch up to The Force Awakens 936 million, because that's like 200 million more to go or so, something like that, plus or minus a couple million here or there. Still, it's actually doing pretty well for itself for Avengers Endgame. Star Wars: The Force Awakens has like decades of pin-up demand for the movie, and then there's Avengers Endgame, right? There's one every couple of years, and with all the other superhero movies interspersed between all the years. So yes, the 770 million domestic gross, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And worldwide, all time, it is second just to Avatar, right? Avatar worldwide is 2.7 billion, and the Avengers Endgame is 2.6 billion. There's like a 170 million or so difference between the two movies. We'll see if Endgames can make any inroads into overtaking Avatar at the worldwide box office all time. Alright, coming in number 3 is Pokemon Detective Pikachu. It in its second weekend, it dropped 54% to gross about 25 million at the box office. Domestic gross is about 94 million, and worldwide it is at 287 million, with 193 million of that from overseas. So this movie is doing actually quite well. The budget is 150 million, and it already grossed 287 million, and with ways more to go, right? And I said this movie was hard to predict because I don't know how the brand, this brand has huge awareness. Everybody knows about Pokemon. There's a game promoting the movie and the movie promoting the game. Decades and decades of games build up a large audience, and people would say, is there a appetite for a live action Pokemon movie, right? Remember, the previous Pokemon movies were cartoons, right, and thrown on the big screen, and those did okay, not great, but not like this level, not at where it's like actually made for the American audience, right? Before it was like anime style, it's made for the Japanese market, and then they translated over, brought it over here with voice dubs and all, right? But this one is specifically made for the American audience with American actors, director, Ryan Reynolds voiced the role of Pikachu, the iconic character in the series. So we didn't know how this movie will do, and it did actually pretty well, right? I said the movie could probably open to around 50 million. It did about right there, open to about 54 million. And it continued to do well. I mean, the drop off is only about 55% or so, in the second weekend drop, and that's actually pretty good drop off, for a movie that opened so huge. And I suspect the this third weekend, this coming Memorial Day weekend, it might, the drop off might not be that high because people might be, checking it out with it's a family movie, first of all, right? Target toward kids. Adults like that because the adults right now have probably grew up playing the game and watched the TV series, so there is that. So it's kind of like a family affair for Pokemon Detective Pikachu. It's like a family outing sort of. So we might see the drop offs kind of to be in the lowish, right? Maybe in the 30s or 40s for Pokemon Detective Pikachu this coming Memorial Day weekend. All right, number 4 is one of the new releases last weekend is A Dog's Journey. It is kind of like the sequel to A Dog's Purpose. It has kind of have the same story sort of, except that right now the story is translated to the main character's daughter. Before it was like Dennis Quaid's character. Now it's Quaid's granddaughter. This movie is about a dog that gets reincarnated over and over and comes back and have a connection to the Quaid family and right now his descendants. And I said the movie could probably open to about 15 million based on the opening of A Dog's Purpose, right? The Dog's Purpose was had an opening of 18 million, went on to gross 65 million domestically and 205 million worldwide. It's based on a best-selling book. That's why we're seeing the movie. I mean, based on that return for A Dog's Purpose, that's why we're seeing A Dog's Journey right now. And it could be better, right? The first movie had an 18 million opening. Now The Dog's Journey had an 8 million opening. Maybe because I don't know, it was too familiar. Like people who were surprised by the first movie, who hadn't known about the book. Like I said, when I first saw the trailer, I thought, haven't I seen this movie before? Or wasn't there something that was released in theaters kind of like it? And it was, it was A Dog's Purpose, so it sort of have the same story, dogs between A Dog's Journey and A Dog's Purpose, except just different characters. So there might be kind of like people might be cooling off on the concept of this, like a dog's X whatever, right? So A Dog's Journey with an 8 million estimated opening. All right, moving along to number 5 is The Hustle, the comedy starring Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson, sort of like the female remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrel, about two con artists who teamed up to separate, rich men and their wealth from each other, right? So this movie pulled in 6.1 million in its second weekend. Drop off is about 53%. Reviews wise, it's not that great, right? 16% on the tomato meter and a B- cinema score. And domestic gross is about 23 million. Worldwide, it is at 51 million, with 28 million of that from overseas. I don't know what the budget for this movie is, but I suspect that it's somewhere in the 45 million or so range. So it's doing okay, not great, right? But it probably hasn't opened that wide overseas yet. So we'll see. Number 6 is The Intruder, a movie starring Michael Ealy, Megan Good, and Dennis Quaid. It's a kind of like a thriller with racial overtones, home invasion. Ealy and Good stars as a couple who bought a house from Quaid, and Quaid sticks around and starting to, I guess, trying to kick them out. And so this movie in its third weekend pulled in about 4 million. Drop off is about 44%. Domestic gross is 28 million, and the budget for this movie is only 8 million, so it's good return there. Hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, so about 28 million still, with a 566k from overseas, so not that wide overseas yet, but it's probably one of these movies that that's not gonna have translate overseas, that's not gonna have great return overseas, but it's gonna do okay, right? For a movie that costs 8 million, anything is bonus. It's mainly released for the domestic market. All right, number 7 is The Long Shot. It is the rom-com starring Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron, and this movie pulled in about 3.4 million in its third weekend. Drop off is about 46% from the previous week. Domestic gross is about 26 million, and worldwide it is at 32 million, with 7 million of that from overseas. So it's one of these movies that was rom-com for the adult audience that was released as counter programming to Endgame, and for a movie like this, it's doing okay. All right, number 8 is The Sun Is Also a Star, the other new release in theaters last weekend. It opened to 2.6 million. This is a movie that I say could probably open to about 5 million, and it opened to 2.6 million, so it's sort of right there. I mean, it is based on a best-selling book, supposedly. It's about a couple who met, and the girl is an exchange student whose visa expired, and she has to ship off the next day. She met this guy, and they have this day to fall in love, and there's this the deportation awaits the girl, and there's this thing between them, right? So that is The Sun Is Also a Star. Reviews wise, 50% on the tomato meter, B- cinema score, so not good there. Like I said, it is based on the YA genre, not very dependable genre lately. 2.6 million opening for The Sun Is Not a Star. Then of course, for these types of movies, right, you need someone to anchor, a name to anchor the movies, and it stars Yara Shahidi and Charles Melton, and those names are not gonna pull in the crowd. I mean, the producer hoping that the title, The Sun Is Also a Star, because of the book, could pull in the people who read the book, but apparently didn't. All right, number 9 is Poms. It's a drama starring Diane Keaton. This movie pulled in about 2 million in the second weekend. Drop off is about 61%, which is kind of huge drop off, right? I mean, because you expect this movie to follow like the previous Diane Keaton movie. What was that movie? Book Club. It did well, right? Target toward the same audience, like the mature senior crowd, right? That movie opened to about 13.5 million, went on to gross about 69 million domestically, and this movie kind of target the same, it is targeting the same crowd, right? Same audience, like the seniors, talking about death, making the best of your time, living your dreams. Maybe the subject matter is a bit too heavy for the target audience, and we see a huge drop off, 61% in the second weekend. You expect this movie to kind of hold steady. If it follows the same trajectory of Book Club, it holds steady and it makes its money over time. But you see this huge drop off, that means it's not going to be like a Book Club. All right, closing out the top 10 is Uglydolls, a movie that's based on a line of plush toys. Yeah, you know, this movie is pretty much advertising for the plush toys. In its third weekend, it pulled in 1.6 million, a drop off of 61% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 17 million. Let's see, hasn't opened that wide overseas yet. About 1 million overseas for for a worldwide total of about 18.8 million. And I don't expect this brand to be huge overseas, so I don't see a huge rollout overseas, right? But the movie costs about 45 million, so you know this is advertisement for the home video for toys. So it's a 45 million advertising campaign for the Uglydolls brand of toys. Plush toys. Alright, so that's it for the box office top 10. Let's move on to the new releases. This Memorial Day weekend, 4 days. So first off, we're going to have Aladdin. It is the live action remake starring Will Smith as the genie. And then there is the teen drama Booksmart. And Brightburn, it is a horror movie that's also a superhero movie. Sony said this is a new genre, superhero horror, so whatever that is. Okay, let's jump right in with Aladdin. So it is directed by Guy Ritchie of all people. You know, Guy Ritchie, who did Lock, Stock and Smoking Barrels. I think the Sherlock Holmes action movies. So he's directing this movie. It stars Amina Masood as Aladdin, Naomi Scott as Jasmine, Will Smith as the genie. So this is another live action adaptation. You know, remember Disney is doing live action adaptation of pretty much all the animated series throughout. Aladdin is the latest one. The previous one was Dumbo, right? And this one's live action with special effects sprinkled, over it and all, right? So, Aladdin. From the trailer, it looks like it's pretty much sort of like the animated version, right? There's song and dance numbers, there's action sequences, special effects, right? But except this one's a live action. And it looks good, right? I mean, people might scoff at Will Smith being the genie. But I think it'll grow on people, right? Remember, it was Robin Williams as the genie before, this goofy guy, but he was in animated form. This one, it's live action. He's in blue paint. Let's see how that goes. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we don't have reviews for the movies yet. There's still embargo still, right? So let's go back to 1992 with the animated version, which opened to 19 million and went on to make 217 million domestically and 504 million worldwide. So like 19 million back in 92 is kind of like a 40 to 50 million opening right now, right? Or maybe more. It was like huge opening for a movie to open to around 20 million or so. That's huge. Back in 92, of course, right now it's like nothing. I placed Aladdin as one of on the top tier of the Disney animated movies, right? Where with the Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, etc. Right? It's not like Dumbo or Pete's Dragon, one of these lower tiers. But so Aladdin, I think it's going to open well. But it's opening on Memorial Day weekend. I don't know which could do okay, right? Depending, but Memorial Day weekend, people have activities other than go to theaters. So I think for Aladdin, for 3 days, I think it's probably going to open up somewhere in the 60 to 65 million range. For 3 days, 4 days, probably about 75 million. All right, up next is Booksmart. It is a movie that's directed by actress turned director Olivia Wilde. She's doing her directorial debut, I believe. I'm not sure on that. But, she directed this movie, right? It stars Caitlin Denver, Beanie Feldstein, Jessica Williams. Those are our main characters. And then there's Will Forte, Lisa Kudrow, and Jason Sudeikis, playing the parents, elder statesman role in this movie, right? I see a limited audience for this one. This is about a couple of a pair of friends in high school about to graduate. They study hard, and on the eve of graduation, they want to, as they say, squeeze 4 years of partying into one night. So, this one night of partying to make up for the, the things they missed out on the other 4 years, right? So that's Booksmart. As you know, alcohol is involved, etc. Like I say, limited audience for this one. So for this one, 3 days I see a 3 to 5 million opening, and 4 days 6 million. All right, up next is the superhero horror movie Brightburn. It's kind of like an alternative take on kind of sort of Superman, like the main character is an alien who crash landed on Earth, and it's kind of like a what if scenario where he didn't grow up to be good and kind, and he grew up to be evil. So that's Brightburn. This movie is kind of billed as like the new genre. Superhero horror movie, which is not a not a new genre, by the way. M. Night Shyamalan did it with Glass, right? And others. So this movie stars Elizabeth Banks, David Denman, Jackson A. Dunn, Matt Jones, and Meredith Hagner. So with the exception of Banks, you probably haven't heard of the other characters. So superhero horror movie, in another name, it's just a horror movie, right? Still horror movie. Again, I'm not optimistic about this movie. I mean, there might be an audience for this, but hey, Avengers Endgame is still in theaters, and why watch this instead of that unless you're looking for a horror movie, right? So again, like Booksmart, I don't have high hopes for this movie, even though the concept is interesting. But why waste a weekend on Brightburn? So 3 days, I see about 6 million. 4 days, 8 million for Brightburn. All right, so that's it for this week's podcast. Tune in next week to see how I did. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.